Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Unfairly back here with some more Marathon PvP content. Today we're going to be getting into a highly requested video. We're going to be going over all of the settings in the game so we can get the most competitive options chosen and get you those extra FPS and that least amount of input delay and just external distractions. So again, this was a super highly requested video. I am a controller player, so we will definitely be going into the basics plus controller, and I'll even try to touch on some of the keyboard mouse, even though that's not my main input. So let's get into it here. This is actually the first day of the game. I'm actually just logging on at lunch at work and going in here doing my settings real quick. So we're going to skip over the keyboard controller for now, just get into the general basics here. So we'll start off with a video. As with any first-person shooter game or really any competitive game where you're going to want the most amount of frames per second as well as the lowest input delay, you're always going to want to be on full screen, not windowed, not borderless. You're always going to want it to be your full screen. For your resolution, you should really just match what your monitor is, unless you're running some sort of kind of setup where you have a lesser one just for more FPS. VSync, again, I'm a minimalist here. I'm someone who plays with all details really off and all settings applicable off, so I do not use the VSync. Again, this synchronizes your frames to match your display's refresh rate, and eliminates tearing but may increase input lag. So we definitely don't want increased input lag. It decreases your reaction time and how fast your character reacts when you get scared or jumped on. So the same thing with the frame rate. The higher the frame rate you have, the less input delay that you're going to have. So I have this off. And with that being said, this kind of option gets grayed out when you have that off. For the field of view, this is a super important one. This kind of shows you how much around you can see through just your eyeballs, your field of view. I'm always going to have this on the maximum amount, 105, just so I can have the most peripheral vision and be able to kind of catch those subtle movements or players that may be coming to my side or from behind my back. The brightness, it's kind of really up to you how you see your display and your preferences fit depending on really your room, your sunlight, things of that nature. Screen bounds is also kind of self-explanatory. You'll just make sure that there's nothing really hanging off the side of your screen or getting cut off. So here we get into the important ones. This is the advanced video tab where you can really get into the nitty gritty. I usually like to go with a custom, or it kind of autofills as custom once you start changing these around a bit. But again, I'm going to go through all of these, anti-aliasing, render resolution, we're going to keep that normal. But I'm going to turn off pretty much everything off or to the lowest that it possibly could be. Even though I have a pretty decent PC rig, I don't want any of this extra clutter or resource drag on my computer. You'll see that when you have the lowest of these settings are off pretty much on everything, you are going to be able to see the game a lot more clearly. You're going to be able to pick up on players and enemy movements way faster. And again, just overall less visual clutter, because the game is quite frankly visually spectacular. You're going to have a ton of, like, the lightning strikes, the water coming off of your visor. There's a ton of things that really, if you're trying to be the most competitive at this game as you can, those are things that you really don't need hindering your abilities. So yeah, light shafts, there's things that can only go down to medium sometimes. Motion blur is off. HDR is automatically off how I have this. The chromatic aberration adds subtle color fringing near the edge of the display. We don't need any of that. For NVIDIA Reflex, I have a 4090 NVIDIA card, so I usually put this on boost. It feels pretty good. Further reduces latency at the cost of increased GPU usage, which is not a problem because I have a GPU that can definitely take it. And then the user interface refresh rate here. This is going to kind of take away your frames. Well, it's just going to kind of tax your frames a little bit. So again, everything on low or off if you want to be the most competitive and have the least amount of input delay and the most amount of frames per second. And of course, like we've talked about, this game is super unoptimized, and it has been for quite some time, even throughout my year of testing. Even on the really good rigs, having like an i9 14900K and a 4090, I'm still getting like 150 FPS approximately with all these settings to the absolute lowest. And of course, you just want to make sure to hit apply on each of these settings before you go and do your thing or exit the menu, just so you get all those options saved for you. You don't have to go back through them. So here we have the sound settings. You're going to want to kind of pick your preference. I do headphones. I have a pretty nice headset. Game volume, I just turned it down because it literally deafens you as soon as you get into this game with all max. Pretty much everything is going to be really your preferences here. The one thing that I will say is that please notice that we have something called the lobby music volume and then gameplay music volume. The gameplay music volume is the one thing in here that I will say you should bring to literally 1 or 0. I would say that 0 is kind of the smarter thing to do, just because this is literally exactly what it says. This is gameplay music. So music that's literally playing while you're fighting people or going into new areas. And again, like we've talked about in all of these videos, your audio cues are the most important thing that you can be cognizant of any single time. So listening for those footsteps, those reloads, the heals, the shooting, the supply drops, the AI arousement. When you have music that's in your ear, you are not going to be able to hear this stuff as clearly or at all. So I recommend turning this to absolutely 0, turn it absolutely off. I did it in every single playtest, and I actually forgot for the server slam until day 2, and I was wondering why I was hearing music inside the game, so I came back here and turned that down. The only other thing really is like your voice chat volume. Sometimes people, depending on if you're not on Discord or you're just actually randomly queuing with them, sometimes people have bad mics, sometimes people have like mics with really high gain, so I usually like to start this out at like around 5 or 6, just to make sure I'm not quite literally deafened by somebody who's playing on maybe a console mic or just a subpar mic. Mute and focus, it's basically like when you alt tab the game, you can still hear sound while you're maybe going on Google or something, or you can have it so it turns the sound off immediately. I like to keep it on just so if I am alt tabbing for a second, I can hear, if someone's kind of trying to push towards me while I'm AFK. So let's hit up the gameplay tab next. There's nothing really too crazy. This is really all your preference. You can change the reticle color, which is really nice. I have kind of a built-in reticle on my monitor, so I don't use it too much. But the useful thing is the FPS display. I always put that on just so you can see what you're getting here in the upper left. Obviously, it's a lot more when you're just sitting in the menu as opposed to the game. Defaulting to Smart Heal is something that's something that I really like, and it's been improved over time. It's a ability where you can just do a one-click heal solution, and the game will automatically determine what heal to use. So it'll know if you're down more health or you're down just shield. It'll automatically try to switch to the best heal for your situation, just so you don't have to kind of shoot through your menu and navigate mid-fight or mid-stressful situation. You can just do a one-tap and kind of have a pretty high confidence that it's going to be giving you the correct med. Subtitles, of course, that's your personal preferences. So let's get into the controller, something that I, of course, play. I don't play too much mouse and keyboard, but I'll give it a whirl through. I'll run through that real quick. But the controller layout for me, personally, it's going to be a standard stick loadout. I don't do any sort of crazy things with the sticks, at least. The look sensitivity, I like to put it up to 7. I have a pretty good crosshair placement, and I've been playing FPS and controller for a long time, and so I'm pretty good about not really clanking the edges or maxing out the sticks. Just really good stick control, so I elect for a little bit higher of a sense, especially in a game where you might have to look vertically really quick or might have to flick around and look behind you quicker. So the ADS sensitivity multiplier, this is going to be when you are obviously aiming down your sights. If you keep this on 1, it's going to keep really just the same type of sense that your base sense is. I definitely like to be slowed down a good amount when I'm in the ADS. I find that I miss a lot of shots when I keep this higher, so I do it to about half. The aim response curve, there's a bunch of them here. I'll pull up kind of the descriptions. I play on classic just because it's really the only thing that I've ever known, and my kind of motto is if it's not broke, don't fix it, and I do pretty well in the aim and game really overall feels really well, so I keep that on classic. But you can see kind of how the other ones work. Like relaxed is going to be greatly reduced response at low stick input, but aim velocity increases quickly near the maximum, so it'll kind of be like more so when the stick is out towards the edge of this, I guess the circumference of the circle, that's when you're going to get the most movement. And linear, the stick kind of movement will be exactly what you're putting in. It'll almost be like raw input of the stick is reflected in game. Aggressive is fast aim response with any stick input, and adaptive is fast aim response with low stick input with fine aim control at moderate stick input, reverse S-curve mapping. Again, not really a rocket scientist or know what most of those things mean, but I just know from my previous pro games, kind of like just regular exponential, which is classic, and linear. I always prefer the exponential linear. I've been on it, tried it a few times, and it's good for kind of certain things on different games. Like in at least Fortnite, it was it was good for close range and spamming kind of SMGs in a close range. But exponential was always the thing that you really could just hit your first shots with and maintain a really good grasp on the aim battle. So yeah, classic is what I take 100%. The vertical inversion and the horizontal inversion, it really just switches how your character looks depending on where you flick. So if you flick up, it'll look down, etc. Don't really use that. It's probably kind of more accessibility or real deep preference type of things. The more important thing with any controller players is going to be your dead zones. So obviously not everyone's on a brand new controller. People have old controllers, people have broken controllers that have been stepped on, they may have stick drift. So my policy is that, again, staying consistent with the low input delay. This is almost like a low IRL input delay, because your stick is going to start moving and your character's aim is going to start moving as soon as you're touching this stick. So every single movement is intentional. Some people need a buffer with high dead zones, but when you get to kind of the higher skill range and you have really good control of your crosshair and your thumbstick, this is something you're going to want to put as low as possible. That doesn't really, you want to put it as low as you can without causing the stick drift. So for say, I guess your left stick moving, you would want this to say you could strafe left and right, back and forth, or get behind cover a little bit faster in fights, just because your character is going to instantly start walking whenever you touch that stick left or right. There's not going to be this little built-in delay before your character acts on what you're putting into the controller. And then the same goes even more importantly for the right thumbstick. That's going to be your thumbstick and your cursor is going to start aiming right as you enter in the input on your stick. So when you need to react to someone and snap to their target and start engaging, you don't want like a built-in manual delay before that happens. You're essentially adding time to your reaction time. And so you always want to have these as low as possible. Again, as low as possible without causing any sort of strict drift. So if your controller or your stick start moving, your cursor starts moving, or your character starts moving without you touching it, it's time to kind of bump it up one at a time until you find a really sweet spot. Auto look centering, seems like it's self-explanatory. I don't really use it. I don't really like to have anything kind of automated or snap anywhere. I'm, again, pretty good once you get versed in FPS games, or in this game in general, just keeping your crosshair placement on where an enemy hitbox is likely to be. Controller vibration, again, I'm always someone who's going to take this off. In the Service Slam, I actually forgot to take it off, but it was kind of nice because it gives you a few vibrations before the game starts and just alerts you that you're about to go in if you're distracted with something. But otherwise, I mean, I don't need my hands to be vibrating or any sort of haptic feedback to just even put a thought or a distraction in my head when I'm aiming or doing something. So I'm never someone who plays with controller on, and I haven't for some time, ever since I've been in any sort of competitive scene. The double press delay, I leave it the shortest. I really wouldn't recommend changing that unless you have some sort of hard preference. Swapping the triggers and the bumpers is, again, probably an accessibility option. It's not going to apply to you or the majority of people. And then this is the best part that was added in kind of later in the playtests, is that you can remap pretty much anything. And so this isn't really something that I can kind of recommend you guys to do X, Y, and Z, just because it really is truly preference. But I know that I'm a tactical player on Call of Duty and in Fortnite, so and even in I forgot what they call it in Halo, but I am someone who uses my right stick click to crouch, and then my B button is going to be my melee. So I'm going to have those switched around, and those are really the only things that I switch around in terms of keybinds. Maybe I'll change my ping marker to the left left D-pad, just because that's something that I'm used to from other games, and I try to keep them consistent so it's not such of a shock when I go back and forth between games and I'm just terrible. Yeah, that's pretty much it for controller here. Went through gameplay, social. This is preference really. I usually will keep these mostly friends only, just so you can't have random people joining your lobbies or your crew. Let's take a look here. And then voice chat, you'll have that on. Proximity chat, it's cool to have it on. But the thing is like, especially for proximity chat, you just want to make sure that that specifically is going to be on a push to talk. This is for crew chat. But I've seen a ton of people that go into the matches with proximity chat accidentally on, and you can see the red name on the left side of your screen that an enemy is speaking, and all I can literally hear is just them calming to their teammates. So they didn't realize that they were not only calming to their teammates, they were also putting their whole voice and team comms in proximity chat to the enemies. So really make sure that you're on push to talk for the proximity chat part at very least, just so you don't accidentally give yourself up as an easy kill like I've seen in some of the tests. Let's see, what else do we have here? Background noise suppression. This is really all just kind of preference on your guys' stuff. Positional chat is like, everyone's voice won't be the same. It'll kind of be louder or softer depending on how far or close that actual person is to your character. So that's kind of cool. It's pretty immersive. And then, of course, these are just your text chat options. Very, very simple and again, very niche and really your own choice and preferences. Here I'll try to tackle the mouse and keyboard kind of tab. I don't know much about it. I don't play mouse and keyboard for anything except Valorant really. But it looks like there's really not as many settings actually for the mouse and keyboard up here. See, we have aim smoothing. I know some people maybe don't like that. But yeah, mostly it's just all key remaps. The majority of it is all key remaps. So yeah. You guys can mess around with these settings. Take a look. Again, I'll show you my my kind of controller sensitivities. This is what I use. It works out super smooth for me. If it doesn't end up working out for you, you guys can kind of keep the bare bones settings and then move your actual bass sense up and down to feel out where you want to go. But yeah, this has been a super highly requested video, and so I really wanted to get it out almost on the first day or close to it of the game coming out, just so everyone is optimized as best as they can, or at least knows where the direction is that they're kind of trying to move. So yeah, thank you guys again so much for your support. I super appreciate it more than you all know. If you guys ever need any sort of questions answered, coaching, clip review, or if you just want to hang out, look for a group, we're always chatting. I'm always saying hi to people, answering questions in the Marathon Masterclass Discord. Link is in the bio and in the description. And if you guys ever want to connect with me on social media, I am unfairly with 2 Y's on Twitter, and I am unfairly in the Marathon Discord. Thank you guys again so much for your support. I hope you guys have an excellent rest of your game launch.